Do you always need a development consent? Yes, most of the time you will, but not always. That's not very helpful, is it? Let's talk about it a bit more. If the development that you're proposing falls into one of the exempt categories in the codes set, then you might not need to obtain development consent. Also, if the development that you're proposing falls into one of the complying categories in the code set, then it might be complying development and you can get a private certifier to issue a development consent. Now, when I'm talking about the code set, what I'm referring to is, in New South Wales, is the State Environmental Planning Policy Exempt and Complying Development Code 2008, commonly referred to as the code set. Let's talk about exempt development. When might your development be exempt development? I think it's easiest to look at an example to illustrate. So the example I've chosen this morning is a carport. So if you're thinking of building a carport and you're wondering whether you might need development consent or not, you would go to the code set and take a look. So I go to the code set here and I find carports, and it tells me that it might be exempt if I don't have a floor area that is more than 50 square metres in a rural zone with a lot size of a certain lot size. In other zones, if it's less than 25 square metres, and in other zones with a smaller lot size, if it's less than 20 square metres. So I look at that and work out what my lot is and what my zoning is, and then I figure out how big the carport can be to be exempt. There's a few other things as well. It can't be higher than 3 metres above ground level. It needs to be located at least 1 metre behind the building line, and so on and so on. So if you're proposing to build a carport, you'd have a look at this and tick the boxes to see whether what you're proposing to do might be exempt under the code set. Let's talk about complying development. So if I'm proposing to build a single story, pretty stock standard resi house, I go to the code and I look at complying development, and it tells me the following development is complying development: the erection of a new 1 or 2 story dwelling house and any attached development. Okay, so great, it's probably complying development. But again, there's a lot of other things I need to look at in here. It can't be in a heritage area. It also cannot be located in a foreshore area, and so on and so on. So chances are I'm thinking that my single story dwelling house probably is complying development, but there's a number of boxes I need to tick here just to make sure that it is. Complying development is a different stream of approval or application, and it's supposed to be a faster, more streamlined process. So you don't want your development application for a single story dwelling to be locked up with all the other applications for large, high-rise, multi-story residential apartment buildings, etc., etc. There should be another faster, streamlined process for simpler approvals, and that's what the complying development stream is for. You can get a private certifier to grant your development consent and to certify it along the way through construction, which is typically faster than the council process. All right, there's another time where you might not need a development consent, and that's when you've been given an order by the local council. So sometimes the local council can issue an order for you to do certain things, like if there's an illegal structure or unauthorised structure on the land, they can come along and give you an order to remove it. So a brick fence out the front of your property, for example, that's illegal, they'll come along and give you an order. Now, if you receive one of those orders, you don't need to go off and get development consent to comply with the order. You just need to take the actions that are in the order, and you don't need development consent to do that. The other time where development that you're proposing might not need consent is where it's identified in a local environmental plan. So a local environmental plan, an LEP, sets out 3 categories of development: permissible without consent, permissible with consent, and prohibited development. So if the development you're proposing falls into that first bucket of being permissible without consent, then you obviously don't need consent. But those things, that type of development is pretty limited. It's things like home occupations and stuff like that. Now, you'll probably work out from what I'm saying in this video that it's not always easy to figure out if the development that you're proposing is exempt development or complying development. There's a number of boxes that you need to tick, and you should engage competent planning advice because the consequences of getting it wrong can be pretty disastrous. If you go ahead and develop without consent for something that you need consent for, firstly, you can cop some pretty heavy fines from the local council coming along and giving you fines, but they can also give you a demolition order as well. So not only do you spend money to build the thing, the illegal carport or whatever it is, but then you've also got to spend the money to knock it down because council gives you a demolition order to remove the illegal structure. On top of that, you might also get the fines and things from council that you need to pay. So it can be a pretty expensive process if you get it wrong. As always, we recommend that you get some competent advice before proceeding. All right, so that's a quick discussion about exempt and complying development. As always, you can go to our Whiteacre website and check out more articles like this on these types of topics or subscribe for more of these videos. Okay, thanks for watching. See you next time.